everyone, welcome back to another Stitches and Scribbles video. My name is Erin and today we're going to be doing another craft fair tutorial. For today I am going to be making my brimmed hat on the Addi knitting machine. Now this is not a hat that actually has a fold over brim, but you'll get a main color on the top of the hat with a stripe kind of going around the forehead at the bottom edge of the hat. This is also going to be a great way to save a little bit of money with making hats, because we all know that we love bright colors like this one, but variegated yarns tend to be more expensive than solid colors, or you get less for the same price as solid colors depending on how the store sells them. So we're also going to be using a solid color to make the brim and the inside of our hat. Today I'm using the Caron 1 pound in the colorway medium gray mix, and I'm using I believe this is an I love this yarn. Let me see if I have the label hidden here somewhere. Looks like I do. This is I love this yarn. Must be I love this yarn patterns or prints. Nope, just I love this yarn in the color Brights. So for this, you're going to need your bigger size knitting machine, whether it's the Addi or the Centro. You need the 48 pin size. And we're going to start with our main color, so the bright color that's going to be visible on the outside of the hat. We do not need any waste yarn for this design, so just find your first pin. Make sure you have a little bit of a tail for at the end. Drop it in and cast on by going back and forth between all the pins all the way around. Once you reach the first one, go ahead and lock your yarn into that yarn guide and set your row counter to 0. We are going to do 40 rows of our main color today, and you want to make sure you keep your tension a little bit light because this is an adult size hat. You want it to be able to stretch a little bit to fit bigger heads. So I actually like to, I'll scoot this back so you can see it, feed my yarn between those two fingers as I hold down the machine. That way I kind of get regular tension just like I would if I was actually knitting or crocheting. You want to make sure you do your first row kind of slowly to make sure you don't hit any snags right off the bat. But once you get through the first couple rows, you can start to increase your speed. So go ahead and do 40 rows of your main color and then come back to this video. Once you have hit row number 40, we're going to trim our yarn, leave a little bit of a tail so that you can tie a knot later, but it doesn't have to be super long. We're going to put our main color away and we're going to switch to our contrast color. You will actually be using more of the contrast color than the main color, but this is the color that's going to be the inside of your hat, although these hats do turn out to be reversible. Go ahead and feed your yarn in, clip it into the yarn gauge, and I'm going to go ahead and reset my row counter because we're going to do 70 rows of this contrast color. So I'm tensioning it just like before, holding it tightly, and getting started. Again, go a little bit slow with that first row just to make sure that you don't hit any snags. I'm just pulling out some more slack yarn here. And there you go. Once you've gotten a couple rows in to your contrast color, 2 or 3 should be enough, go ahead and take your 2 yarn tails and just tie a knot to secure them in place. This is going to end up being between the 2 layers of your hat when it's folded over, so you don't need to trim the ends if you don't want to. I leave about 1 inch and snip the rest and add it to my scrap bag that I use for stuffing. Go ahead and go until you have 70 rows of your contrast color. Okay, so that ended up taking me forever because it turns out my machine does not like the Caron 1 pound yarn, but that's okay. It probably took me maybe an hour to finish those 70 rows, whereas it took me like maybe 5 minutes to do the first color. But regardless, once you've hit 70 rows, go ahead and trim your yarn with a fairly long tail so that we can sew it up and finish the project. So you're going to thread your yarn onto a yarn needle, unclip your yarn from the yarn guide. Try not to get it caught on other pieces. There we go. And then we're going to slowly crank it and pick up stitches to finish the piece. Since we're not doing waste yarn, we do have to thread through all of the stitches this way. And you're just going to continue that all the way around until you pick them all up. Once you have gotten all of those stitches off, you can pull that string tight. And I just do a few stitches back and forth across the opening to really seal it in. Like that. Then you stick your needle down into the piece and pull that string all the way through. Now we're going to seal up the other end as well. So the cast on end should work like a drawstring, just like the end we just finished off, because of how the cast on method works. So just pull that tight. And you're going to knot both of these together very tightly. If you want to, you can also use your main color yarn to sew a couple stitches across the top of this opening. Once you've added in those couple stitches at the top, thread both of your strands through your needle and then push it through so that it's going in between the two layers of the hat, and draw those strands all the way through, and this is going to hide your ends for you. So once you've pulled it all the way through, made sure that it's not sticking out through the top up here, then you can just trim it, let those ends kind of fall back in. And there is your finished hat. So you can see we've got our main color on the top, that nice variegated kind of rainbowy design, and we've got a gray brim, but the best part about this is this hat also ends up being reversible. So then you can have a solid neutral color on the other side to give you two different looks for the same hat. Now about pricing for these. So I mentioned already that this one took a lot longer than intended just because my machine did not like this gray yarn. Normally, if everything was running smoothly, it would take me about 20 minutes to 40 minutes to make a single hat. This one took closer to like an hour and 15 minutes, but that was a fluke on my part because of the yarn. I usually price my knitting machine hats at $25. Again, that kind of comes from that's a price people are very willing to pay for a hat. And it gives you a pretty good profit margin if you are making them in 20 to 40 minutes, because you can usually get 2 hats done in an hour, depending on how fast you're going. But even for this one taking me an hour and 15 minutes, 25 is still a really good price for something that takes that long. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and use it as inspiration to make your own craft fair products or just products for fun for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check me out on other forms of social media, all of that information will be in the description box below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you get notified of all sorts of crafty content that I produce. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!